One of the funny little details that's often missing from this Trump 2028 talk is something that more of you are bringing up, which is imagine you could resolve the constitutional issues. Imagine that you could have, as Steve Bannon calls it, some interpretation of terms that would allow Donald Trump to run again and be elected again and serve again. Trump falls asleep 5 times a week in public and is only working 12 to 5. What's missing from the Trump 2028 stuff is that the then 82-year-old who already can't stay awake is not going to have what it takes to survive a third term. And I don't mean literally survive, but to get through it as president of the United States. There's a really interesting piece in the Bulwark, which kind of cuts through the noise around Trump's future. And it focuses on something really basic, which is that Donald Trump keeps falling asleep on the job. It's not a joke. We're not saying he's asleep at the wheel as some kind of metaphor. He is literally falling asleep in public all the time. Now, according to the Bulwark, Trump closed his eyes for roughly 6 full minutes during a recent cabinet meeting. That's if you put together all the moments during which he appeared to be sleeping. It wasn't late at night. It wasn't after a bunch of travel crossing 8 time zones or anything like that. It happened during a formal cabinet meeting during which everybody was praising him. And the New York Times noticed, which started covering this. Trump is furious that the New York Times is talking about it. And we have to simply look at the numbers as we think about this 2028 stuff. Trump is 79 years old right now. In 6 months, he will be 80. And the questions about his stamina are building. Republicans said, we are going to make age and energy the defining issue of the reelection, and we are going to attack Joe Biden with it. And every pause by Biden was framed as decline. Every bad moment became proof that he couldn't do the job. Now, Biden was declining, but there was no question that he still was able to do the job. And even today, I would trust Biden with the nuclear codes more than I would trust Donald Trump. Decline aside, and I was one of the people who said after the terrible debate that Biden had that he's going to have to drop out. The problem with Republicans having made that the defining discussion is that Trump is now showing a lot of the same signs. And suddenly, most people on the right are very, very quiet. And when the Bulwark asked Republican lawmakers about Trump falling asleep, most of them refused to comment. They didn't want to say anything about it. Senator Rick Scott said, I haven't heard about it. And when they said, well, we have the video for you, he said, I'm not going to watch the video. That's not a confident person. That is an avoidant person. Senator Lisa Murkowski did comment and pointed to Trump's terrible sleep habits and said it's probably a result of that. According to the Bulwark, and we have also covered, Donald Trump has posted endlessly to Truth Social between any hours, but including between 8 p.m. and midnight. In fact, the day before they wrote this piece, Trump had posted 158 times to Truth Social between 8 p.m. and midnight. So Trump is spending a lot of time, including late at night, rage posting, and he's struggling to stay awake at work. In a lot of jobs, you would be called in by HR and they would say, we've got to talk about what's going on. You don't seem to have it together at work. These are warning signs. These are not one-time things. Trump has fallen asleep in all sorts of different situations. He was falling asleep during his criminal trial. He's fallen asleep in the Oval Office. If this were Biden, Fox would be running, crypt keeper graphics with a countdown to death 24/7. Now let's zoom out for a moment. Let's get into the 2028 stuff. You hear jokes, you hear memes. You also hear serious talk about Trump 2028, like Steve Bannon saying, once we define the terms properly, you'll understand why Trump can have another term. Well, Stefano Forte, who's the president of the New York Young Republican Club, says they are prepared to support Trump in 2028. And I guess he says something about, this is the first endorsement for Trump 2028.
The first to endorse President Donald J. Trump in 2024. And Mr. President, the New York Young Republican Club is prepared to endorse in 2028.
All right. So set aside for a moment, just for a moment, we'll come back to it. Set aside for a moment the constitutional problem that third terms are not allowed. Set aside for a moment that this is just not legally possible. There is a much bigger problem that none of these people want to confront, which is Trump doesn't look mentally or physically capable of another term. Trump would be 82 years old at the start of that next term. That's not spin. It's not an opinion. It's the math. And we are already watching a president who can't stay awake through a routine meeting. So put ideology aside, put partisanship aside. On the question of whether the person can be conscious and functional, Republicans know Trump can't do it. And this is why they dodge, and this is why they minimize, and this is why they joke instead of addressing the issue directly. They are not confidently defending Trump's stamina anymore. They are quietly pretending that it's all going to sort of sort itself out. But the jokes about Trump 2028 ignore a reality that is playing out every single day, which is Trump is not gearing up for another term. This is a guy who can barely stay awake during the current term, and he's only working reportedly at most 5 hours a day. Appreciate you watching. Stick around for this next video, and don't forget to hit subscribe so you actually see our uploads. You can also catch the full podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.